The morning sun rose red over the valley. What had been white and blue in the mountains now shimmered in gold and ember. The frost was gone, replaced by the dry breath of wind sweeping through cracks of black stone. Steve, Alex, and Andy stood at the edge of the ridge, looking down at the valley that glowed faintly from within. The Crimson Vale, home to the fire fragment. Beneath them, the land pulsed like a sleeping furnace. The earth was cracked and glowing. Rivers of molten stone ran through the canyons like veins of light. Steam rose in long ribbons. Somewhere beyond the haze, a ruined temple of obsidian and copper glimmered. That was their destination. Andy squinted. Looks hot. Steve smiled faintly. It will be. The trio began their descent. Their boots crunched on ash and cooled basalt. The air grew heavier, filled with the scent of metal and smoke. Even Alex's compass quivered, its needle trembling as though the heat warped magnetism itself. Soon they reached a plain of blackened earth, where small geysers of fire hissed and spat sparks. Pillars of magma rose from cracked ground, casting long orange shadows that danced like ghosts. Each gust of wind carried a low hum, a rhythm like a heartbeat buried under stone. Steve paused, resting his hand on his arm where the mark of ice faintly shimmered. The blue glow clashed against the red light around them. "The mountain's silence won't help us here," he murmured. Alex adjusted her gear, tying her scarf higher.
Careful.
Then we listened differently.
See? I told you it bites back.
By noon, the heat became punishing. Andy stumbled, shielding his eyes. Alex poured the last of her water onto a cloth and pressed it against his forehead. Steve broke a piece of cooled rock and carved it into a shallow bowl, filling it with condensation collected from their packs. Every small kindness mattered. Every breath was earned. When they finally found shade under a cliff, the rock itself seemed to breathe. Faint vibrations rippled through it, as if the mountain was alive. Symbols carved into the wall glowed faint orange when touched, flickering like coals. Alex leaned close. These are old, older than the Frostkeeper's runes. The carvings formed a spiral, but this one was jagged, burning inward instead of radiating out. Steve placed his hand over it. The air shimmered. For a moment, the rock turned transparent, revealing something deep within, a heart of molten stone pulsing slowly. Then it vanished. As they ventured deeper into the valley, the world grew louder. The heartbeat under the ground quickened. Fires leapt higher. Walls of heat shimmered like invisible curtains, distorting the horizon. They crossed a field of floating basalt stones hovering above glowing magma, a bridge of ancient power. Each stone pulsed when stepped on, resonating with a low hum that echoed through the air. Halfway across, the hum turned into a growl. The stones began to sink. "Run!" Alex shouted. Steve scooped Andy into his arms and sprinted. The stones behind them splashed into lava one by one. With a final leap, they landed on solid ground, the last stone crumbling into the molten sea. For a moment, all was still, only the sound of their ragged breathing and the slow roar of magma below. Beyond the bridge lay the temple, built of dark obsidian and redstone. It shimmered faintly in the heat, its arches carved with flame-like motifs. Inside, the air vibrated, not from temperature, but from something deeper, an ancient energy waiting to be awakened. They entered cautiously. The floor was a mirror of polished black rock, reflecting their faces distorted by flickering light. Flame pillars lined the hall, burning without smoke, feeding on nothing visible. At the center stood a circular chamber with a raised dais. Floating above it was the fire fragment, a cube of molten glass pulsing like a living ember. But they were not alone. A shadow rippled behind the flames. It grew, forming the outline of a creature, tall, armored in scales of obsidian, with eyes like burning coals. The Blaze Sentinel, guardian of the fragment. It moved with the sound of cracking stone, each step trailing fire. When it spoke, its voice was like molten metal poured into water. Who dares disturb the Ember heart? Steve didn't draw his sword. Instead, he bowed slightly. "Seekers of balance, we carry the silence of ice. We come to learn, not to take." The sentinel tilted its head, smoke curling from its jaw. "Fire cannot be held by those who fear it. Step into the flame and prove your heart endures." The floor around the dais split into concentric rings. Flames erupted between them, forming a maze of fire and shadow. Steve stepped forward first. Each flame he crossed bent slightly, as if recognizing the calm in his step. Alex followed, her eyes calculating patterns in the shifting firewalls. Andy hesitated, trembling. "Remember the mountain," Steve said softly, "the warmth that doesn't burn." Andy nodded and took his step, small, brave, true. As they advanced, The flames mirrored their emotions. Fear made them rise, courage made them fade. Steve's mark began to glow again, this time merging blue and orange, ice and fire, calm and fury. They reached the center together. The blaze sentinel raised its arm, and the fire folded inward. The fire fragment drifted down towards Steve, but before it touched him, the flames surged once more, surrounding them in a vortex of light. Steve didn't flinch. He reached his hand through the fire. Instead of burning, the flame wrapped around his palm like silk. The fragment merged into his arm, completing the spiral. Blue lines now intertwined with streaks of red. The sentinel's voice softened. Then you have learned that power is not to destroy, but to warm. Its body cracked apart into drifting embers that floated upward like fireflies. Outside, the sky had changed. The clouds were gone, replaced by a deep, endless blue streaked with gold. The valley no longer rumbled. It hummed, steady and alive. Alex smiled faintly. 2 down. Steve nodded. And 2 to go. Andy pointed toward the horizon, where a faint shimmer of green, the color of life, rippled over distant jungles. Their next journey awaited. As they walked away, the ashes beneath their boots cooled into dark soil. From it, small green sprouts emerged, life reborn from flame. And behind them, the temple's heart pulsed once more, steady and calm, not as a warning, but as a promise.